It is that many of us are generous because we need to be generous because we live in such abundance, but we give to other parts of the world and we forget where we live. And where we live, which is why we brought you here, because I live here, is that we want to remember that there are people who need our support in becoming successful. And JobTrain is awesome. And my restaurant, Late for the Train, which started in '76, has worked with JobTrain from the mid-'70s. And now I'm on the board, and I'm honored to be on the board. But we would love you to learn about JobTrain from meeting some of the people in the different programs. And if you'd like, my gardener, Drew, will help you be really local and talk compost with you and chickens. And you can meet Drew over there. You can learn about us. We didn't want to just have an event at the Four Seasons or a hotel. We really wanted you to connect with JobTrain. And I also want to honor Michael Martella, who I've known for 33 years and is a local winemaker and the only person we invited to this event to pour delicious wine for you. Yes. And I'm not going to say much more except I'm grateful for your being here, and I come from a place in my past where I was on welfare and I needed help, and that's why I am a part of JobTrain, because we all give back. And now Rita and I joined the board at the same time, and we all know Rita Williams because she's way more visible. I mean, I'm your local girl, but Rita spread the word about that which is good and crazy and right and terrible on the news. And she's going to take over the program, and thank you for being here.
The Bobbsey twins here. And in sympathy with, not sympathy, but to be like Jessie, because we are the twins that joined the board together, I have the blue streak. Do you see it? It's a little less vibrant, but I think it's looking good, don't you think? Jessie said, come over early, she'd fuchsia me.
I would do it.
She was going to fuchsia me, so I blued myself. So, But as Jessie said, we all have our own reasons for being here. I am a first-generation person who went to college from my family. My father had an 8th grade education, my mom in high school. I've spoken at JobTrain's graduation. This is an organization when I was a reporter, and I have retired, woohoo, a year ago. So now I can out myself. Instead of being objective, I can be subjective. And I think JobTrain is one of those organizations that I want to be a part of. So Jessie and I did join the board together, and I get the distinct privilege tonight to be able to introduce somebody who most of you probably already know or know of. And Paul, you want to come up and join me? Paul Cook, who chemical engineer, he likes to be called, and technologist, but he's so much more. And Paul did not want this to be about him. So I'm going to embarrass him. He said, you promised me. And I said, no, that's a reporter's thing. You know, if you ever go off the record with a reporter, they have to agree. Remember that, Paul?
Yes, Rita, but I can get back at you.
You probably will get back at me, but I want people to know who Paul is before we let him talk a little bit here. And if you don't know much about Paul, New Jersey's loss was California's gain. This was way back in World War II. Paul got 6 months at Stanford, I understand, by virtue of Uncle Sam in the Army, right? World War II?
And went into OCS to become an infantry second lieutenant, fought with the 10th Mountain Division in Italy for the last half a year of the campaign. And that was my introduction to Northern California, and I resolved at the time that one way or another, I was going to get back to North California.
Wait, you're jumping ahead, Paul.
Oh, sorry.
I'm still talking about you. So Paul went back home to New Jersey after his introduction to Stanford, and he graduated from MIT. And then he came out to California, to the Golden State, and decided you wanted a piece of the action out here. You couldn't stand to be away, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So then he came back, and he was, can you imagine this? He was employee number 44 at Stanford Research Institute International. Is that what it was called back then?
Yes.
Number 44, and that was in 1948. That was just 1 year after it was started.
Correct.
So Paul stayed there for just a little bit, and then in 1957, he founded Raychem. How many of you know about Raychem? He doesn't think anybody knows who that is. But I want you to know that when Paul retired in 1990, there were 10,000 employees at Raychem, is that right?
That's right.
And revenue of $2 billion. So, but Paul was, can you imagine, he was 65 then, and he quote unquote retired. Ha! Retired. I think he's like the ever-ready battery where he just keeps on going. So then he became chairman of SRI International and other boards. And Paul is now, whether you believe it or not, is 90 years old, and he is now heading a startup company.
That's true.
That's true.
I haven't had enough.
And we haven't had enough of Paul. And ever since I've been associated with OICW JobTrain, Paul has been a part of it, and he goes way back past me. So he wants this to be more about OICW JobTrain. So Paul, of all the organizations out there that you could have helped and supported through the years, why this? And you got to put that mic up or I'll have to hold it.
I was so impressed with JobTrain when I first heard about it, when it was just starting, and got in trouble. It was running out of funds. It had difficulty with organization. There were people that were not doing their job. And I had some executives at Raychem who came to me and said, hey, there's this wonderful organization just down the street from us, and they're going to fail unless somebody steps up and does something. And so I took a look at the credentials of what we saw and was pretty impressed and said, okay, let's figure out a way we can put them on a short leash and give them a chance to succeed. And so we gave them some money every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. And a relatively modest amount of money. And Sharon Williams had just then become the director.
Sharon, and, right here. Sharon
is with us today.
Hi, Sharon.
And she together with our every 2 week pay, made it through the difficult. Leon Sullivan had given his support, which was very important, that provided the credentials that we thought were very necessary. Leon Sullivan was a very, very famous pastor and became a director of General Motors, as I remember it, and that was a remarkable situation. So all this came together. Sharon led it and spent her life growing it from nothing, and 2 week, every once in a while, small infusion of money until it became the $5.5 million budget organization that it is today. Incredible performance.
But didn't you also provide one of your financial experts from Raychem helped out too?
We loaned some executives to step in and say, hey, the accounting needs to be improved a little bit. We do have to keep track of what's in the bank and what we're sending out. And I'm kidding, of course, but it did take some help, and we were delighted to provide that.
And Sharon even met her husband Will through JobTrain, right? Yeah.
Will's been a tower of strength through this whole situation, believe me.
And Paul has told me great stories about the titans. He is a titan of Silicon Valley, but some of the other big names that you've heard of that have been around, and how he played people against each other to donate to JobTrain, to OICW. You can tell now they're not with us.
It's kind of, there's so many fun stories. Let me tell you just a couple. First off, I had huge respect for Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard. And Sharon and I had decided we're going to go after them as donors. And so together, Sharon and I called on Bill Hewlett several times, but the first time was to explain what OICW was. And let me tell you, Bill took it aboard and remembered everything that we told him later on when we met with him in the future. And to make a long story short, he said, Cook, if you really believe in this, you match what I give and we'll have a good deal. So each of us put in $100,000, and I said to him, how about Dave Packernuck? And you said, up so we can go meet Dave. And he said, Paul, whatever I give, Dave's going to give.
But I thought you told me you told David Packard that Hewlett gave more money than he did, so he would put in a few extra bucks there.
That was later.
That was later.
You can't do everything at once.
All these great secrets from the past are coming out now. And then when I first got around here about 15, 20 years ago, Tom Ford, who was another titan in Silicon Valley and venture capitalist and other things, Paul was involved with Tom, and Bill Walsh, who was certainly the coach back then, and Paul was still the one at the head of JobTrain. And let us just explain here. JobTrain, OICW stands for, can you say it?
Opportunities, Industrialization
Center
West.
And so for those of you who don't know, it started in Philadelphia in the 60s, if I've got this right, because I did several stories on this, and as OIC, and it started with what we're going to do with Leon Sullivan, and when they explained what was happening, he said, oh, I see. And so then they came up with what would fit the acronym. And then this was the first one outside of Philadelphia, and that's why they called us West. And so now they've sort of morphed the name into JobTrain because it explains better what they do, right?
You've really done your homework.
I was a pretty good reporter.
Yeah.
I got a couple of words to show for that one. But you have continued to stay part of JobTrain, OICW, all these years, and you not only could have done so much more, even your family, which we will introduce here in a moment, but they, when they wanted to do something, and we'll explain what that is in a minute, but why your family? Why would your family want to be a part of JobTrain?
They had great respect for my opinion of what JobTrain had done, and they caught my enthusiasm of what JobTrain was doing and wanted to do in the future. And I'm going to leave it to Heleny to talk about it in a few minutes.
You want her to tell about how you got involved. Not only was Paul, just a little background, but while he was running his own Raycam, he was running another company, and Heleny will explain that in a moment. But Paul, is there anything you want to say to everybody out here who may be new to this organization?
Yeah, I'm very grateful that all of you will honor me tonight, as several have done recently. But let me point out that there are people in this crowd, for example, that have spent a lot more of their energy and time on making JobTrain a success than I have. And I don't like to stand up and take credit for what others have done. I like to respect what everybody has done and what we've done together. And let me tell you, we've had some wonderful, great times, great experiences, and thank you all that have contributed as much as you have, because it has been a remarkable success. Thank you.
And we all respect this man, Paul Cook, and what all he has done and continues to do.
Thank you very much. Greetings from the Cooks of the East Coast. Paul has a few more nieces. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister. My brother John, who is named after my father, Paul's oldest brother, wanted to be here today, but he had plane complications, so I'm here to represent the Cook family. I'm here for Paul Cook and JobTrain. JobTrain And all 6 of us East Coast family are direct beneficiaries of Paul's foresight, business acumen, and generosity, because Uncle Paul oversaw our father's company, ChemFab, after my father was killed in a plane crash in 1976. ChemFab became a very successful company because of Paul Cook's oversight and guidance. This past June, under a tent in the field in the front of a house in Williamstown, Massachusetts, in the hills of the Berkshires, we celebrated Paul Cook's 90th birthday. There were actually 37 of us, and we had tried to figure out how we were going to thank Paul. The thank you, designed by Marcia Cook and Nora Soboloff, is a $240,000 seed gift to the Paul M. Cook Trailblazer Fund at JobTrain. But I'm going to tell you something else. The seed fund has just gone up to $250,000 because I spent Friday, 2 hours Friday at JobTrain. And let me tell you something, that place is about positivity. You know that word, positivity? Let me just give you a taste. We got, I want you to understand that positivity comes in many forms at JobTrain, and it's actually vital to the organization's effectiveness. The chef trainer, Mr. Adam over here, Mr. Adam Weiner, I attended his class, and let me tell you, you hardly get into the kitchen and he wants you to applaud the people that are in the kitchen that he's working with. Now, yeah, no, it's true, okay? And let me just tell you something. You know, when you have not been successful in school, when you are a dropout, when your teacher always said unpleasant things to you, when suddenly you're overwhelmed because your family needs money and you don't have the wherewithal to give it, when you're suddenly overwhelmed that you're pregnant and there's no help anywhere, you really feel like you are not a success in life. In fact, a lot of people that have the courage to come through JobTrain's doors are not feeling successful. They've never had an experience being a success. Maybe, I know in my family, I take it for granted. But so the positivity is very vital. And let me tell you another positive story. When someone at JobTrain gets a job offer and takes it, you know what happens? In the vestibule on 1200 O'Brien Drive, is that right?
Yes.
There is this wonderful bell that clangs. And you know what has to happen? The person who received the job comes to the vestibule, and there might be 200 people in various training programs at JobTrain, and that man or woman has to testify. That's how we say it in DC. You got to testify. You got to tell your journey. You got to tell your story. And do you understand how important that is? That someone who experienced the same thing you did, who had one day the courage enough to get out and go into the door to JobTrain and say, I'm going to change my life. You need stories from other people. And so that's the positivity of JobTrain. So I could go on a long time and tell you about the assets of JobTrain. And let me just mention the board. I haven't met everybody, but I've read about them and I've seen how they think. I've seen the strategic plan. I'm going to tell you one thing about the strategic plan. I think they have 5 goals or something, but one of them, they value their employees. Do you understand how important that is? When an organization stands up and says, we value the people that are working with us. So that's obviously a core value of the organization, okay? Well, I'm going to tell you something. We value Paul Cook, and we want We want to show it. We want to show it to the world. And I want to ask each of you, first of all, I want to say that you're very lucky to have JobTrain in your community, in your backyard. There's a lot of organizations who attempt job development but do not have the effectiveness of JobTrain and do not have the variety of board members who ask questions, who are not satisfied with what they done, with what they have done. So you're very lucky, number one, to have it. So I want to leave you with a question. What can you do as an individual or as a family to get the positivity, to continue the positivity in people's lives? And I want you to think of, this story about walking through the door at JobTrain is real, because I heard it from one of the staff people. You know, you look and you wonder, after all the failures you've had in your life, whether you can do it. Whether you can do it. And you know something, there's value at JobTrain. And I'm still working with it, and I need to understand how they do it because I'm a teacher. There is no failure at JobTrain. They got your back. Do you know what that feels like? Okay, well, I just want to tell you, Paul had our back. He understands that. So, you know, sometimes you have an opportunity in your life to take the personal public. And I'm a woman of means, thanks to Paul and my father. And I can take my personal commitment, my core value public. And so I'm glad to have Paul as an uncle. And I'm glad you're here. And I look forward to talking to many of you in the future and maybe even tonight. So thank you very much.
Heleny, who teaches in DC and teaches people who haven't always had a chance. Did she learn from her uncle? I think so. I wanted to introduce a student, if he will come up here, Levon. And I just want you to know that when I retired, they asked me if I would help with some videos for our Breakfast of Champions last year. And it was like work. It was like going back to TV days. And I spent a couple weeks and I interviewed 8 students. And the reason I did that was because I heard Levon's story before I said yes. You don't know that.
It's okay with me.
And his video is my very, very favorite. And so I'm so happy that he is here with us today. And I'm going to help him through this because it's his first big public speech, not on video. But Levon, tell us about yourself and your job history.
Well, my job history was...
Keep it up there.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, my job history at first, it was like very poor, you know, until I actually went through JobTrain. When I went through JobTrain, it's like my whole life had changed.
How old are you?
I'm 36 years old right now.
36?
Yes, I'm 36.
How many jobs had you had?
None.
0. What was your job?
Right now?
No, what was your job before
Oh, robbing banks, selling dope, stealing, whatever you want to call it. But I came from a real bad background. You know, I've been incarcerated all my life. You know, when
You're
I
from
had
East Palo Alto?
East Palo
right?
Alto. So I know everybody who comes in, comes out, who moved in, and you know, I know all that. You know, so I've been incarcerated all my life.
Can you imagine 36 years
All
and
my life.
Levon never had a job? And then, what happened in your life that changed?
My little son, my daughter.
Your daughter first.
Yes, my daughter
Let's
first.
get to the daughter.
Yes.
And that was, what, 8 years ago?
8 years ago.
She's 8 years old.
8 years ago. And when she was born, I never had a holder because I was incarcerated the whole time.
You were in Pelican Bay then,
Pelican
right?
Bay. Yes,
So
I was in Pelican Bay.
Big time.
Yes.
He was in Pelican Bay on a bank robbery conviction. His daughter was born, his first child.
My first child.
She's 8 years old
8 years
now.
old.
But for 8 years,
For 8
Levon
years.
did not get to hold her,
Nothing.
change her, be
Nothing.
with her for 8 years. And you did a lot of soul searching in that cell, right?
Oh, yes, I have. Yes.
And what did you decide?
Something got to change. I said to myself, something got to change, you know. Because if I go back again, I know what to expect. But now, since I'm out, ain't no way, you know. Ain't
But
no
what
way.
happened when you got out?
I went to JobTrain. And when
But you found out about JobTrain from your
a parole officer.
parole officer and your minister in East Palo Alto,
Yes.
right?
Yes, Andrew Harris.
And they sent you to JobTrain,
JobTrain. Yes.
and you got accepted.
Yes.
And then what? You went every day. Your teachers told me that
I walked there. I walked there, caught the bus.
he did.
Anything that I can actually, but I made it. I never missed a day, no matter what.
Never missed a day, but he also, they told us he was the first to get there every day. He was the last to leave.
Yes.
He had a smile on his face every day.
I stood there by the door before the door even opened. you know, and was the last person to leave.
And you graduated
Yes, I graduated, and it was like 2 years ago.
2 years ago. What were you taking?
Labor construction.
He was doing labor construction, and you didn't have your GED either, did you? Didn't you get that?
Yes, I did. Yes.
So he hadn't finished high
Yes.
school. He got his GED through JobTrain. He finished the program. I'm going to start crying like I did before, so I'm trying to keep it going here. So he graduated, and you went to work, how? Part-time for?
Full time. W.O. Butler.
W.L. Butler Construction, right? All right. Well, first it was a part-time.
Matter of fact, that it was a part time. It was COP.
COP
Yes.
as a part-time,
Part time.
and they placed you at Butler
Butler.
Construction. And then what happened? So then we come to our Breakfast of Champions last May, and we showed that video, and a couple of folks here were there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they already knew about you.
Yes.
So what happened after that video?
Yo, some good things. It was some good things.
They hired you full time,
Yes,
right?
they did.
They hired you
Yes.
full time with benefits.
That's right.
And then since
Full-time with
then,
benefits,
he
yes.
now has even more in his life.
Oh, a newborn child.
He has a 5-week-old baby son who's asleep in the cottage, Jesse's cottage. And you have somebody else that you might
my
want to
fiancé.
introduce, eh?
Right there, Camille Day.
They knew each other in East Palo Alto when they were little.
Yes.
And they hooked back together, and she's so impressed
Since
by
I was
this
2
man.
years old.
Since you were 2 years old. And she hooked back together with this man, and now they have a great son, and you get to do things with him you didn't do with your daughter, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
You're there every day, not through
Every day.
glass, but you're with him.
Every day. Every day. Both of them, every day.
So what would you like to tell people about OICW JobTrain?
Oh, I see the job train do the magic. I'm telling you, it do the magic. It was there for me 100%. That it seemed like that's my family. No matter what, that's my family. Even though I really don't got too much besides my little family that I have, but JobTrain is my family. I would do anything for them guys. You know. Yeah.
Thank you, Levon. You're so good. And that's why we all are involved with JobTrain, or people like Levon. And it changes. For 50 years almost, it's been changing lives like Levon's. And this woman, we've mentioned Sharon Williams, who was with the organization as the executive director for many years. She retired. We're the Williams sisters here. She retired about the same time I did. And one of the first things Jesse and I did as new board members is we got to hire a new executive director. And I will tell you, we vetted a lot of people. And the best, at the cream of the crop, is Nora Sobolov, who is bringing it to a new generation of technology and other things. And there is nothing but the bright future ahead. So, Nora?
The truth is they fed me green chili soup and then I couldn't leave. So I just really want to, I'm just wrapping things up. So I want to say, first of all, thank you all for coming. This is a wonderful event. It's a beautiful space. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're having a chance. I got to taste something over here that some of you had cooked, but I'm looking forward to tasting your creations throughout the night. There's a great opportunity back there to build something. Now, you know, we don't have insurance on all the pieces, so you're going to have to be really careful. And I was telling a few people over here, you got to be careful because we're trying to get you to help keep some people alive. And some people said to us, oh no, I'll just watch. So we hope you'll get involved and have a chance to experience. As Jesse said, there are going to be some tours of the garden. So really, we'd like you just to join us in a wonderful evening of food and drink and to get to know our students and our staff and each other and just have a wonderful evening. But the evening would not be complete if I didn't do a couple of thank yous. So first of all, to our wonderful staff, to Jasmine and Reshma and Susan and all the people who have helped put things together and all the students who have volunteered, thank you very much. And Matt, who's filming. But there are a few people in particular. We have a few little presents for people just to thank them, and so I won't present them up here, but I just want to let you know that we have a little something for Levon and his lovely fiance for their new baby. So to thank them for joining us today. Thank you. And I'd like Jesse and Rita to come back for a second. Just for 1 second.
This isn't a part of the program.
Not in the script.
That's okay.
Not in the script, and we don't have any wine.
So these lovely women have been amazing in just helping me and us with so many different things. And they've been wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to host this event, to interview our wonderful Paul Cook, and to welcome his family, who were wonderful, and we loved having them. And Jesse, for opening your home to us. We just want to give you a big round of applause and a great thank you. A little something to relax with, a little something to love. So have a wonderful rest of your evening. Enjoy the food. Take a tour of the garden and have a great time.
There's lots more food coming up. Please go say hi to Michael and Bev, dear friends who would love to pour you wine. Drew, where are you going to be?
I'll be by the compost pile.
Yeah, he'll be
By the compost. Don't miss the chickens.
And if you didn't see that, if you haven't been up here, each station out here is a different group from JobTrain that will tell you what they do there. So if you want to learn more about what they do, there are folks around here that can answer your questions, and we want you to just mingle and meet each other. You're all special people, or you wouldn't be here tonight.
And special thank you to Paul Cook and his family for coming from afar and from coming from close and for being the reason why we all are still here. Thank you very much. Have a great time.